All right, great. We got a little feedback.
Rich is just gonna shut us.
It is. He's working on it.
That's annoying, huh?
It's fine. We'll get it figured out.
That's like your little buddy that repeats everything you say, right?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do it. I'm not.
There we go.
You're not gonna do it?
They gotta change
Okay.
that. I don't like
All
this
right.
technique.
I think we're good to go now. All right. Good evening, everyone. This is the planning board meeting for Monday, November 7th, 2022. We are here at 7 p.m. in the town hall, meeting room 124. In accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 20, notice was previously provided on our town website. Alternate public access to this meeting is provided via Zoom. We see we do have some participants on Zoom, and we do have some people here in our room in person. The Zoom app allows users to view the meeting and provide comments during allocated windows of time to provide response. To join, please follow the web link that was provided on the town's website. The meeting will be recorded for future rebroadcast by the Norfolk Community Television. For further information, please see the town's website. We will do a roll call vote. We do not have any board members remotely, so voting this evening does not need to be by roll call. We do have one member that is absent this evening. He had another conflict. Microphone is doing some weird. Betsy's. Okay, all right. So we'll do a roll call vote. We'll start with our associate Melissa.
Say aye.
I should just say aye. And then Gary.
Aye. Here.
Not a vote. I'm sorry. A roll call. I'm sorry. Let me back. A roll call
Oh,
attendance.
thank you. I was like, what am I voting
no,
on?
no. We're not voting on it. Sorry. Just roll call. So we Gary Sullivan,
Chris Montfort here.
Chad Peck here,
John Weddleton here.
and we have our town planner Richard McCarthy,
Here.
and we have our administrative assistant Betsy Fajol. So,
Yeah.
excellent. So we will go ahead and get started. We have a 7 p.m. public hearing for the 117 Main Street Norfolk Fire Station site plan special permit, earth removal permit, and stormwater management permit. And this was continued from our October 11th meeting.
Hello, Kevin Champagne, Chair of the Fire Station Building Committee. Glad to be back here again. I know there's been quite a few documents and emails kind of going back and forth over the last few weeks to try and hopefully get this all squared away, so I don't know if there's still further questions, or Ron, if you have something to present, or if we're just...
So maybe we should make a quick few introductions. So Kevin, you introduce yourself. We do have Ron that's on Zoom, and then we also have Phil with Beta Group, and do I see a Steve?
Oh, yeah, Steve Kirby, who is with Vertex, our OPM, and then Donald Walter, who is also with Dorn Whittier.
Great. So who would like to start? Ron, did you want to start?
Sure. So we had a meeting with Phil and Rich, and we went over all of the, last items, I guess, that were on the list. And I believe everything's been resolved. Rich had sent us over a draft order of conditions, or the draft approval, if you will. And so I think we're here tonight to ask the board to approve the project.
Okay. So we'll pass the mic, I guess, over to Phil. So Phil, where are we at? Has everything been satisfied? Do you have any questions or things that we need to be, that you deferred to us?
Yeah.
So there are a number of waivers requested. As Ron mentioned, we had gone through back and forth a few times, and all the issues, I mean, we might have a minor issue, but about relocating a water line connections. But other than that, I think all the engineering issues are addressed. I don't have any issue with the waivers being requested, as we've hashed it out quite a bit. I do think there are a few, obviously the parking is a concern, not a concern, but a decision relative to the, the size of the project. There's a few conditions that are pretty typical for a project like this in terms of requiring an agent of the town to observe the infiltration system as it's excavated, to confirm that the soils are what we thought they were. And yeah, so I think if you want to go through the waivers, like I said, I don't necessarily have any issues with them. It's more of a preference for the town.
Phil, your letter also made note that you hadn't reviewed the lighting plan at the time. My understanding is that was provided after this was authored, and have you actually had an opportunity to review it?
Yes.
Any
it's fine.
concerns from the lighting plan then?
Nope. I think it was just, there was a detail that was missing, so they provided that.
Excellent. So, Rich, do you want to, maybe we should at least go through the waivers on the screen? Or Betsy, do you want to put that on?
Sure.
Yeah, it might be,
'Cause a lot of these waivers
Probably
we've
the
discussed
first page of the
previously, but
site
it wouldn't
plan.
hurt to go through them, just as a final.
There's a 1Z1, that's the parking that he defers to us.
Which I believe we hashed that out quite detailed at the
I
previous
think we're
meeting.
fine there.
so we'll put the site plan up for
Okay.
display.
Yep.
Which has the list of the waivers on it.
Oh, okay, that's great.
In terms of your decision, I kind of move things around, which is a little bit different order than what's on the plan sheet, but it's not.
Just give me a second. This is not.
Then there's the
Rich,
earth
we got some,
relocation.
Things here that are noted to be resolved by the board. The parking was mentioned.
Yep.
There are some other ones, though.
So the parking number required spaces is special permit for the planning board. The location of the parking, which some of the parking will be in the front.
Yeah, I'm fine with, I'm just going over the parking, I'm fine with, like, SP 8, better recommends a condition that requires blah, 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 blah. Is that been addressed?
No, we haven't discussed that yet.
There's a few of them. I'd like Phil to take the items that are still thrown back to the planning board so they could just discuss them and resolve them. I don't think there are many.
Yeah, no, I think that's the intent. I think we're just starting with the waivers first to make sure those make sense.
Bear with me one sec.
Yep.
Yeah, SW3 is going to be a fun one. That's the pipe shown on the utility plan.
Oh, no, sorry, that's the peer review.
P2.
I'm sorry, you're not gonna be able to read that.
Well, we could,
Yeah, I've had trouble with their site plans before. It's,
It's not rastered.
no, okay.
That's what I thought.
Aren't you in IT too? Come on, Jesus.
Never mind. Okay. What about the pulling up the decision?
yeah, just pull up the beta decision, yeah, that's fine.
You can pull up the,
BCG, that explains it.
why don't we pull up the decision?
The decision?
The actual plan board decision,
Okay.
because the waivers are listed in there.
Perfect.
Okay. But then we do want, like John was saying, we do want to go through this because there's a few that we just need to finish discussing.
Well, some of them are actually referring to waivers, so I'm not
Right.
sure what makes sense to go do.
Yeah, I mean, you're right.
Which.
You're right. Maybe it. We'll
The
let's
waiver
go through the
detail,
waivers first, and then we'll go.
yeah, the waiver detail is much more explicit than
Right.
in the actual area where they're asking for it.
So then just pull up the 11.2 beta review on her. Please. I'm gonna go through that one.
Well, while Betsy's pulling that up, the first waiver, waiver 1, was to allow the parking in front of the structure where the requirement is on the side and rear yards, and it's my understanding we were all comfortable with that, given the site plan. Waiver 2 was to allow increase in building height from 40 to 46 feet, and again, we felt that that was applicable.
Yeah, and that was in order to keep the same facade.
Right.
That was in line with the town design guidelines.
Yep. And then waiver 3 was allow for greenbelt conformance as provided, so I'm not that. So I guess, Ron, could you which one of these did it refer to, and could you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, so we've provided the green belt all the way around the site as it was reviewed by the town planner and the building inspector all the way around the site.
Yep.
And then for the drainage easement or the stormwater utility easement, we have a sketch that we shared with everybody previously, so that if the vote passes tomorrow, we will not plant in the utility easement because the zoning will have been changed. If the vote does not pass tomorrow, then we will plant the sketch that we provided everybody within the utility easement.
Okay. Yeah, the vote's next week, but yes, I know what you mean.
I'm sorry,
Yep.
next
No,
week.
you're fine. It's 1 week from tomorrow.
There is, you can vote tomorrow, just not for it.
Yeah, we have other voting tomorrow. Yes. Okay, thank you. Waiver 4, allow a reduced number of parking spaces after further review from the owner. Fire chief, there is a need for 30 spaces. We discussed that in quite detail at a previous meeting. Allow for multiple types of curbs as requested by the town. Yes, we're aware of that. Allow bioretention area installation without a fence. So that, if I recall, that's the bioretention in the front.
Yes, and we've separated the sidewalk from the bioretention with hedges,
Right.
low
Okay.
hedges.
Yep. And that bioretention basin, how deep is that?
3 feet,
Okay.
and it has a gentle slope down into it.
Okay. Allow for sidewalk to terminate prior to the east of the property line. So if I recall correctly, the sidewalk goes all the way, it just stops at that last driveway, the eastmost entrance, because it doesn't connect, so that little piece wouldn't connect to anything.
Right, because there's no sidewalk east of the site.
Okay. Then waiver 8, allow for modification to survey to exclude survey tied to nearest town, county, and state bound. That's standard, unfortunately. Waiver 9, provide names of all parties of interest, including abutters, owners of land directly opposite on any public or private street or way, and abutters within 300 feet of the property line as they appear on the most recent applicable tax list.
I thought that one we had decided that they would do.
That's what I thought too.
So the,
Yep, we've sent that in to
So
the
just to
town, so you have that list.
just to kind of clarify this requirement,
Yeah.
you have the most, you don't put what the abutters to abutters of it, like what you send out notice to,
Yep.
but the names of the abutters are on the plan.
Oh, okay.
Right.
So they did do that.
So
Then why do we need a waiver?
It's not the full
it's not the full 300-foot list on the plan.
Got
It's
it.
just it's just the direct abutters on the plan.
Got it.
Is that correct, Ron? Just the direct abutters on the plan, not the
Correct. We
300-foot.
put Yes, we put the direct abutters, and then we also sent in the list of everyone who had been notified.
Okay,
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
okay. Waiver 10, allow for parking lot runoff to sheet flow to the bioretention areas, eliminate required oil water separator. We discussed that, and we were okay with that. Waiver 11, allow for amount of gravel borrow to be submitted prior to the start of construction. I do recall Phil mentioning that there's just some unknowns that we just don't know right now. So that's why we allowed that waiver.
Yeah, we don't know how much we're going to be able to reuse from the actual property itself
Right.
versus what needs to get trucked in until we start.
Excavating.
Right.
Yeah. Is that correct, Phil?
Yeah, that's fair. Yep.
Okay. Waiver 12, allow for stormwater basin to be constructed without the required 10-foot tree easement. So Ron, where was that?
That's the same thing in the front of the building. So
Okay.
sight lines and everything else, we're putting in a hedge rather than trees.
Okay,
And on the east side, one side does have the trees, but again, just for sight lines, I guess, vision, coming out of the parking lot. We're not gonna wrap the bioretention with trees.
okay. And then waiver 13, allow for stormwater design infiltration rates to be based on soil texture class where hydraulic conductivity tests are required. So can you elaborate on that?
Sure, we did the tests and submitted them to Phil
Okay.
and
and
Rich.
Phil, what was, I don't recall what the rationale was on this one's. Phil, can you elaborate on this?
So, yeah, most towns just rely, and the stormwater management regulations for Mass DEP rely on soil texture as opposed to conducting hydraulic conductivity tests. Your regulations do, however, require that, so
Okay.
that's really the issue. So I think, you'll see we got a condition later on, just the fact that we'll see the whole bottom of the infiltration basin during construction so that we can confirm the soil texture.
Okay, thank you, Phil.
Yep.
All right, so that's it for the waivers, but we still need to go through because there was some items that were deferred to the board.
Yeah.
Any questions on the waivers before we proceed?
I think so.
Okay. So Z1 was the
Parking requirements?
parking, so we've discussed that in quite detail. So I think we're fine with that. Z2 was the signage.
Right, so we've got some
That was it, that was- I'm sorry, that
operational
was
signage on
resolved.
the building.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that was
It's been-
resolved. Yeah.
Yep, and then we also provided the detail. It's gonna be the same exact size of sign that you have at the police station with some granite piers.
Yep.
So ER1 is the next one.
Is the next one?
Earth relocation and removal. Bless you.
And there's no page numbers, are there?
It's on page 4.
Yep, the ER1, so Beta recommends including a condition that the applicant shall bond, the fire station project requires performance and payment bonds for all work performed by the general contractor. Beta defers to the board on this issue.
So the general contractor will get a performance and payment bond for the entire project in the full amount of the entire project, which includes the site work.
So Phil, what, you're deferring to the board with regards to what part of this?
So,
There's a bond.
Because it's,
yeah, it's a required bond in the general bylaws.
Yep.
So I don't think you need two.
Right.
If it's gonna be bonded by the overall bond,
yep,
so.
I think you're right. So,
Since there's a comprehensive bond, we
Right.
don't need this specific one, okay.
right, and but our
Yeah, I mean,
bylaws
that-
do require the specific bond, which it's redundant to bond it twice.
Yeah, and this should be a very small portion of the project anyway, so.
Okay. So are we comfortable with that? Yeah, okay. Signage resolved, waiver resolved.
SP8 is what Phil had
SP8.
talked about. That's where we're gonna observe the groundwater. And Richard showed me the plan, there's a pipe that we're gonna be observing on the Board of Health, will Rich? To make
Yeah,
sure
and-
the water level is adequate for the system.
Right, we've put in 2 monitoring wells.
Right.
2 monitor wells. And what Phil mentioned earlier, they're going to be on site to take a look at the excavation when that's done for the basins. But I did also add in the Board of Health agent as well. So there's really 2 layers in terms of observation
Okay.
for the basins as a condition.
Okay. So any other questions on that? We're good with that? Okay. So then SW3 was, we were talking about this pipe that shows up in the utility plan, relocating the water surfaces and gate valves to avoid potential conflict with drain pipe.
Right, so the existing pipe that goes from the church drainage swale and connects to the drain manhole in the street. We've now shown that on the drawings, so it's on the drawings, but what we don't have is the invert from the existing pipe. So the recommendation was to take our 2 water lines and just slide them to the east a few feet. So we noted back that we would make that adjustment in the field. Once we dig it up and we see where the pipe is, we'll just kind of like move to the right a little bit to avoid it.
Okay.
So we don't have any crossing. And the project requires an as-built at the end of the job. And so at the end of the job, we'll have the contractor put down exactly where that pipe was installed.
Was that noted in the plan as to be
Yeah.
coordinated in field?
We sent that off by an email, yeah. So we can certainly put that on there.
What were you going to say, John?
It's the exact same thing.
Okay, great.
Great minds.
Excellent.
So that looks
Alright.
good.
I think that's it.
I think that's it. Any other following comments, Phil, Ron?
Not from me.
Okay.
Ron doesn't dare. Smart.
Anyone from the board, any other questions, comments, concerns? Speak now. Okay, anyone else on Zoom have any questions, comments? I mean, it is a public hearing. I see no hands. Okay. So I think we've met our objectives, satisfied the requirements, so I think
So you can,
we need to close the public hearing and then vote.
that would be correct.
So,
Motion to close the 117 Main Street Fire Station site plan peer review.
Second.
okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. So public hearing closed, so now we need to vote on the decision that Rich drafted.
So there's the earth removal decision.
Yep.
There's the stormwater management permit decision. Then there's the combination, the site plan special permit decision. Since,
You need a separate vote for each?
yes,
How'd you do the earth removal permit when you don't know how much is coming in or out?
there was a number that was in the,
There a number in there?
yeah, there was a number in there. Yeah. Yes, separate vote. Because what I'd like to, since Eric's won't be voting tonight,
Correct.
provide the opportunity for Melissa to vote on the special permits as associate member. She can't vote on the stormwater or the earth removal or the site plan, but she can on the 2 special permits.
Okay,
You're on.
so we got a special permit, an earth removal permit, and a stormwater management permit.
Or which one are we gonna do first?
I don't care. Which one do you want to do?
Site plan.
We'll do the site plan.
Let's look at them first.
So Betsy, do you want to put,
Site plan, special permit.
This is the site plan special permit decision.
come on. That's the stormwater.
That's, you'll have to delete every
Earth
time his name.
removal,
Yeah.
site plan and special permit. And Rich, so Melissa can vote on the site plan and special permit application, or just the special permit?
Just the special permits of the application.
Okay.
Melissa's attended all meetings for site plan, right, Melissa? Okay.
So what we'll do so we'll just go in and change the vote for the,
And do we need to call out anything about that last piece with the drain and coordinating that in the field? Since it's not on the plan currently?
could have them, we could add that in, that's noted on the plans before endorsement. That there'll be coordination in the field. So Ron, you said you were gonna put a note on the plan, correct, Ron?
Be on the as-bills.
No, prior. We need it prior to then. That way the GC knows to coordinate. that.
Well, right, yeah. But then,
Yeah, we'll put it on the bid set.
right,
Yep.
okay.
So we could have that. I'll just add it in here as a condition somewhere. So make it, you could vote on this with the change to add that to the plan set. And renumber everything, or you could just stick it in, let's see. Well, how about we do this? Take the vote on the stormwater permit, that one's easy,
Okay.
and then do the earth removal, and then I can think about it real quick of where I would put it in for the,
Okay. So I will entertain a motion to approve the stormwater permit for 117 Main Street as printed. Do I have a?
So on that one, if we don't get the bylaw change, and then we don't get the special permit from zoning, then this means nothing, right?
oh, wait a minute.
On the stormwater?
We have the special
No,
permit and the,
So stormwater has nothing to do with the
Okay,
bylaw change.
all right,
correct,
Yeah.
correct.
okay, yep, so moved.
Do I have a second?
Second,
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, so that's the stormwater.
And earth removal,
Earth removal, so entertain a motion to approve the earth removal permit and for 117 Main Street, Norfolk, Mass, as printed.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right.
Question, Rich? A while ago, this earth removal had a little quirkiness in it. So not only is the earth counted that is leaving the site, part of these numbers is also the earth that is being brought into the site.
yeah, so if you wanna look at,
I never could figure that out, but I know that was brought up a lot. Maybe Phil can help on that.
yeah, so on the, on number 5 of the earth removal permit for the board, it says, at the meeting of planning board November 7th, the vote 5-0 was taken to grant, although I'll have to change it to 4. Because Eric won't be vote to set up for stripping 750 cubic yards, moving 700 cubic yards, and removing 400 cubic yards of material. So it's got stripping, moving, and removing.
Not bringing in.
No. So this one we'll have to just make a change to.
Yeah.
To include, I would make it based on 4 members, not 5.
Correct. Yes.
So we can change that. So we'll probably have to have you, I don't think we're gonna, that one we can do easily, I think, right? Doesn't, there's no signature on the earth removal.
Right, that's right.
So you can just vote it, and
We
we'll
did.
change it. You can, we'll
Yep.
send it to you. You did vote it,
We did.
earth removal?
They did?
Yep, we did.
Sorry, I'm behind.
No, that's
Two different
fine.
places.
We're good. So we're on site plan and special permit.
Yeah, so doesn't fit neatly in the end. It's kind of not in our standard, but, so one option is we could add a line in condition number 14, which says all conditions indicated in this document are shown as revisions to the site plan in order to be submitted to the planning board as consultant for review and approval prior to endorsement. That might be a nice little place to insert a sentence about a note being added to the site plan to coordinate the
Relocation of the water pipes.
relocation of the water pipes.
That works.
That's what I would offer as a suggestion.
Okay. So I will entertain a motion to approve the site plan for,
Sorry. It might make more sense in number 6, because there's already
Number 6.
utility installation, and it won't interfere with the installation of sidewalks. It sounds like it could just be an extension of that.
Yeah, you could do that too.
okay.
What about deleting Eric's name?
That'll happen as
I will
well.
have to.
Yeah,
yeah.
we'll do
That'll,
that.
Subject
we'll
to,
remove that.
yeah.
Okay,
I'll print you up a signature page.
Right.
okay.
You can sign it.
Either or, you choose. Do you
I think
want?
6 reads better. 14 is just, it's
I know.
more.
It's fine. Yeah.
I was just thinking 14 inch because it's gonna show a note on the site plan, but whatever you're comfortable with,
Okay.
we'll go with.
So entertain a motion to approve the site plan for 117 Main Street as printed with a modification on number 6 to include
The on-site coordination
the on-site coordination of the water,
valve.
yeah, what was it? The water valves and the water pipe
Relocation, not, to
Relocation.
not
relocation,
conflict with the outlet pipe to the,
to not conflict with the outlet pipe
for the stormwater system
or
on
the
the
stormwater system
Federated Church.
for the Federated Church. Thank you.
Of Norfolk.
Of Norfolk.
So, help God, that was good.
And we will remove Eric from here because he's not here this evening.
Yes.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. So that is the site plan. So now we have the special permit. And so I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the special permit for 117 Main Street and as printed.
And removing Eric Diamond and
And
inserting
removing Eric,
Melissa.
yeah, and removing Eric Diamond and inserting Melissa Mayo, since she was here at all of our meetings regarding this public hearing.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Say
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.
All right,
That's it?
that's it.
That's it.
All right.
For this part for you.
Hope to see you
thank
all
you.
on January 11th.
Yes.
Be there, be square.
We're doing like a special town meeting, is that right?
Super special. town
Super
meeting.
special. There we go.
Double special.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. When did we announce that?
Good night.
3 weeks
You're doing a
ago.
special town
The
meeting?
special meeting?
Yeah, there's a super special meeting in
I heard
January.
it a while ago, but I don't know where I heard it.
It's a
I
super,
heard about it yesterday when somebody knocked on my door and said they were
it's a
running for
super,
selectman.
yeah,
I was like, huh?
And a special election?
Who's running?
yeah.
Yeah.
Lehan's
I think
good.
Selectman is going to be on it. Who's running?
Boy.
Jim Lehan
guys are
is
keeping-
gonna
Oh, yeah.
reprise his
That's-
role, I think.
Oh, so what, is he getting signatures?
All right, so
It's a little bit off, 4 minutes, 5 minutes.
I'm trying, Rich, I'm trying.
No, that's fine. No,
Okay.
No, we're doing
So
good.
we have a 7:30 appointment for Southwood Hospital, and I will pass it over to Josh Fiola with MAPC.
sure.
Signature page. and
Okay.
we can make those.
All right,
Still alive.
excellent.
Just put a mask on.
And just a little bit of intro before Josh gets started. There are people on Zoom, and then there are probably people live streaming at home. Tonight's meeting is really just intended to give an overview from the public response from the June meeting, as well as the online survey that was posted for the Southwood Hospital site. There will be a community meeting that we're looking to have in December specifically for this topic. Josh will get into that. One thing, food for you to thought, which I did discuss with you last week, is we're rolling into December, and it may make sense to do have a hybrid meeting so people can come in person who wish to.
And it might snow.
And it could snow, but also have the meeting held here at Town Hall versus having it at the elementary school. We had talked about the idea of maybe doing something hybrid at the elementary school, but we haven't tested the technology to do that, so I thought that, and in terms of, I think December's a kind of busy month. I think more people would probably attend virtually than come into the meeting room, but they're welcome to come in.
Absolutely, yeah, that makes sense.
So that would take care of one task on the checklist. And then, I know I'm jumping ahead, sorry, but I want you to be, as Josh goes through his presentation, think about timing in terms of December. What's I think we said the week of the 12th, I think, is the one we talked about. Potentially is
Christmas shopping time.
is the furthest into December that, for those that would want to be in a public. Now, you always have the option, just throwing out, we always want to plan for other options. We could move it past the holidays and go into January. If, it's kind of our schedule on this, so there's not really, we're not trying
Not
to.
a firm deadline, but we want to keep the ball rolling.
Want to keep the ball rolling. So if you think that it may make sense to get after the holiday, we can do that too. So anyway, I'll turn it over to Josh and let you go from there.
Thank you, Rich. Good evening, board. Good to see you all.
Good evening.
Likewise.
So I see, just to start off, you have 15 minutes for this. So I have a lot of presentation here, so I think we can just skip through and hit some high notes for
Yep.
you all.
Yes.
So Betsy, I guess we'll be going pretty fast through it.
Yeah, and I just made you co-host too, if you would
Oh, I could share
rather
it. Yeah, do you want me to share
screen
it from
share?
this
Sure.
one? Sure. Yes, I think Rich's summary is a good one. We're perfectly open to having a meeting in December to continue the process more publicly with the community workshop. As we move closer to December, I think also thinking about January, is a valid approach as well. So we, as Rich mentioned, we have purposefully kind of slowed this process down a little bit to keep a pace with the development team in their progress, and don't want to move ahead too quickly in that regard. So we're kind of moving at a slower pace because of that. So we can get into those details in a moment, but let's just get in a little bit on the community workshop side of things. I'll skip through this, but this is an important simple diagram to just reiterate. Summarizes the overall process. We're looking at gathering input and triangulating on shared solutions between sort of the surrounding neighborhoods, the residents of Norfolk, the overall town through its plans and documents, the most recent housing production plan, for example, and then the property owner and developer as well. And hopefully through this process can add value to the overall development process and provide some meaningful solutions potentially within that central part of that Venn diagram. The property we all know very well. I'll skip right ahead to the summary of participation. Robust participation overall. We are very pleased with the amount of participation that the community of Norfolk came out both in person and the hybrid workshop back on June 6th. We had 20 to 30 participants with us in that meeting. And then we had a follow-up survey that was open for more than a month in June and July. And the
Yep.
survey
Yes, that's
had
being
a fantastic amount of response. We got over 350
I can do it in the room.
responses. And so in total, the feedback that you see this evening is based upon over 400 participants, which I think is a very sound foundation for the effort. Just a little bit of glance into what those 400 participants look like. Most self-identify as an interested Norfolk resident. There's also a fair collection which are self-identifying as neighbors to the property. Of course, many of them are also Norfolk residents. We have a few Walpole residents who are also neighbors to the property, and then some that just identified as an interested stakeholder and not wanting to divulge more details than that, and a few others that didn't like our choices and selected other, but the predominant majority was Norfolk residents. The largest category of how involved have you been with the Norfolk or the Southwood property in the past? 45% had some previous knowledge of the property. Some had a little bit more, and others, again, chose other as the interest there. Most people are seeing the meetings just as a point of interest for the planning board through Facebook, through town, the town posts on the website, and through the calendar. And then through the concerns, these are direct quotes from some of the 400-plus survey responses about what brought people to the meeting, and a lot of concern about the remediation on the site, the current state of the site in terms of environmental cleanup and the contamination there, concern and care about the future land use and the overall development of the property. I'd say that was the main summary of what people were interested in. You can see that in a word cloud on the screen as well. And that's the top priority, thinking about the community as focused as through the development, getting the property clean, and contamination the main focus there as well. You can see a similar selection of quotes from the top priority for those survey respondents in regard to the Southwood property, hearkening back to some of the previous planning board hearings that Amazon doesn't build a warehouse there, thinking about the assessment and cleanup, and having a responsible development that does deal with the contamination issues. And again, a lot of focus on community-oriented features, community space showed up there. So we had some questions which related to a shared vision for the property, and the consensus really comes around sustainable solutions, both thinking about the site and its legacy in the town, but also sustainability in regard to its cleanup and having it be a viable development site. And then community orientation was actually the highest vote received there. So having a development program which does provide some community amenities, and we can look at what those may be in more detail in some of these additional questions. And then if you narrowed that down to just one choice, people really focused in on the community orientation by and large compared to the other options that people were given. And then we do have some sort of vision statements that were offered by residents. A lot, again, focus on the community that we see trails and parks and business and housing show up there as well, along with affordability. And here's some of the specific quotes which build into that word cloud, which I just showed you. And again, reiterating a lot of focus on remediation first, and then letting the development program come along to follow that. If you might recall, we did present 3 different state hospital redevelopment examples in the previous workshop. We asked if there was one of those or more that the community identified with most, and it was the Foxborough State Hospital that the community thought was most similar, although there was quite a few responses that didn't think any of those examples were very good comparables. The most frequent mentioned other comps were the Medfield State Hospital, or that there's not really anything is quite as similar as the Southwood property. I think this is really the meaningful meat that we're moving on next. So we're trying to build up, thinking about the potential uses. So we looked at, in this meeting, really getting a focus, what I would call a baseline assessment of where the community's at in terms of the uses and outcomes they would like to see there, going use by use. Next, we'll be exploring those sort of other 2 circles a little bit more in the Venn diagram that you see again on the screen, thinking about the town of Norfolk at large and how that might play into considerations on the property. It's sort of an abstraction of what the property owner might like to see, thinking about various scenarios and outcomes and how that might relate to development feasibility and remediation on the property. Again, at a planning level, sort of in an abstract way, not representing the developments, the developers' outcomes specifically in this regard, or speaking for them. And we also want to think about what's physically possible, what's legally permissible, and then again, what's financially feasible on the property, and think about all those things as we start to drill down on some specific scenarios and potential outcomes. So here's just a cross-section of the types of photos which we had identified that go with some of these outcomes. And what was interesting overall, you'll see as I go through these specific outcomes pretty quickly, and then we'll show them all together on a summary slide, is that residential uses kind of started off at the lowest density, and the support for residential uses was inversely proportionate to density. So as density increased, the support decreases. And that starts off with single-family homes on the property, which, let me just start there, did not, most people, the most frequent answer was it could be a good fit with 35%, but if you look at the number of people who thought on the negative side that either probably is not a good fit or definitely not a good fit, that was 54% of the respondents, compared to 43% who thought it could be a good fit or definitely a good fit. So we kind of tabulate that positive versus negative, and that's what you see in the red and green bubbles on each of these uses. So next was single-family homes in a more dense, compact, or clustered arrangement surrounded with common open spaces, similar to what you have at Boyd's Crossing, I think is a good example of that. And you can see already the probability of that being acceptable by the community is already starting to decrease down to 61% overall, with 43% not thinking it's a good fit. Duplexes or two-family homes where you might have a little more density, again, 66% thinking not a good fit, with 46% being the strongest answer with that definitely not a good fit. Townhouses, again, the support is decreasing, and then we get into some general multifamily descriptions where we had small-scale multifamily, medium-scale multifamily, and large-scale multifamily, and you can see that even just introducing the word multifamily with small-scale, the approval continues to go down quite a bit, with 75% there. And then if you go to medium scale, it decreases even more at 78%. And if multifamily at the largest scale, 88% is the sort of probably or definitely not a good fit combined there. And then the one thing where we saw support for a residential or a portion of the program being residential was either senior living or continuum of care type of development program piece. And that jumps the support between definitely a good fit or could be a good fit to 61%. So that was the one, I would say, bright spot in terms of a residential related development program item. Mixed use continues to be pretty well supported, 67%. That mixed use could be residential above. We called out specifically a non-residential ground floor. Retail uses similarly well supported, 79% between the two categories of support. A restaurant, 84% between the categories of support, so well supported there. Office and commercial uses still supported, a little less well supported at 67% together. And then light industrial and manufacturing uses go back down into less supported, so 69% between those two categories of less support. And then we heard this loud and clear from the community, of course, but just as a sort of litmus test in this survey, we included it in warehouse and distribution facilities was at 84%, not thinking either probably not a good fit, but most were in the definitely not a good fit category between those two. And something like protected open space, of course, you would assume that many community members would be supportive of, and that was true at 89%, with 54% thinking it's definitely a good fit. Or something a little different, like a clean energy production use, would also get quite a bit of support at 71% between those two.
So interesting.
So if you compile all those...
It's like the antithesis of a protected open space.
I know.
If you compile all those uses and just put them in order of supported to not supported, this is how the list shakes up, with protected open spaces at the top of the list and multifamily large scale at the bottom of the list. Interestingly enough, large scale multifamily was even less favorable than the reaction that we all saw in the warehouse that was first proposed and brought
Well,
forward.
which is also interesting because what would you expect in a mixed-use environment?
Yeah.
You know,
So-
which actually fared quite well, 67%.
And also the desire to fix our 40B problem. I mean, the
Yeah,
community
that-
is all, seems to be,
That's where my head goes, where this is like a potential messaging issue, where if this is a potential to fix our 40B issue, or at least get to that, this is a blocker, because.
Right.
yeah.
This is you can't have your cake and eat it too kind of a situation here.
Which is the type of thinking that we'll be getting into sort of from this point forward. I think the way I would describe these results, and we'll be talking about it and continuing this conversation with the community at large, is that this is a baseline, effectively, for us to understand where the community is presently in regard to this site. The way I would reflect on these results is that we haven't done any of the scenario analysis that we will be getting to the next step, but my initial reaction to this list and its support is that it would not provide enough options to, if the priority on the property, as we were seeing in some of the other survey responses, is remediation on the property. I don't think that this list of uses that are most supported, and that's where the red line is, so senior living and up, that list of uses would provide enough viable development opportunity outcomes to support full remediation of the property, I think is my initial reaction to it. So what that indicates to me is that we have to continue the conversation with you all, at large, with the community, and use the scenarios to help continue that discussion about what might be a good possible outcome or set of outcomes. Of course, in this process, we don't have the heavier lift of the development team to figuring out the specific successful outcome. We're trying to open doors for the developer to respond to, so we want to think about what could be a potentially acceptable outcome from the community's perspective, from the town's perspective, what could solve some issues for the town. You all were just mentioning affordable housing, potentially. This is a property that could resolve some of those townwide concerns and considerations. So the scenarios, we hope, will help to continue this discussion, and we can use this baseline from the community to see how maybe we could get some movement. I think there are also some meaningful conclusions from this list. For example, I think I would accept as a planner looking at this list that multifamily, large scale is clearly not supported. So density can be sensitive and sort of gentle density on the property. It's a large property. That's another thing we'll be talking about at the next community meeting, comparing its scale to other areas of the town or nearby municipalities, and just sharing how large the property is. So it's not the case that you'll have to necessarily push to potentially like a large-scale multifamily solution to get the financial viability. You can get density other ways.
You know, Josh, the wants and the financial feasibility couldn't be farther apart.
Oh my God, yeah.
Couldn't be far. I mean, you got a place there that probably will have a land cost of around $25 million. And with $25 million, you're not putting a couple of restaurants and single-family houses. So it'll be interesting. You have your work cut out for you, because to me, this isn't even close to what this will be.
You'd have to rival Patriot Place just for the retail uses for it to be viable.
Yeah.
And that's not
But
happening.
it's a start.
No.
Start.
Yeah, it's a starting point. I think that we can't, in my experience, these processes are sequential processes, so we can't jump into, I think it's good to get the baseline of where the community is presently on all of these different options.
The continuing care might be a nice one to start with there.
Yeah.
I think that's financially feasible, and it seems like people are positive to that type of development, so.
I'd be interested to see feedback on mixtures and stuff too. Like, hey, we know that you don't like high density, but what if it came with retail and commercial space? So, yeah, like you said, it's sequential, so really interested to hear future feedback.
Great. No, it's good to hear the board's opinion on all of that. I think I do see some light in terms of the potential opportunities and how this all works out, with the tough task ahead of myself and the town. The potential impacts that are the biggest concern are traffic, school-age children, which we hear with almost every project of scale like this. But what's unique to this property, of course, is the issues with contamination.
Yeah.
And the contamination, as you mentioned, Mr. Welton, is a expensive issue that the site is carrying and through no fault of the present owners.
I know.
And so that, I think, will be a solution where we all have to be very realistic in terms of the development program that's potentially, available there. And it's, I think, heartening to see the community's focus on contamination, remediation of the property. So maybe that will be a way to think about the solutions that would viably support that remediation. If you take, so this was looking at all the answers that apply, so this is less prioritized, but if you prioritize this list, then contamination jumps to the top of those three concerns at 21%. And I think that is, while it's difficult for us to put our hands around exactly what those costs are, even the actual development team is, I think, still trying to figure that puzzle out. But we can think about abstractly what that cost may be. I mean, you put out a number that, would be a
We had a
benchmark.
group here 3 years ago, a national group, and they did some homework, and they gave us a minimum cost to take down the buildings of over $10 million. And that was 4 years ago.
Right. Yeah, so we can use some of those previous figures to, accounting for, escalation of costs in the last year or two alone, and think about the scale of development within those choices that the community expresses preference for, and what if there's some light there in that simplified Venn diagram that we keep referring back to. So next steps, just to get through that really quickly. So I would consider in this sort of checklist that we've gone through, we've put an initial check, and again, it's a process and procedure type of check. This isn't the only input that we'll receive from the community, of course, but this input was focused on the community's perspective. And we have a lot of other yellow boxes on this slide, which we need to try also to put an initial check into and consider in some way as we think about these potential outcomes and opening up opportunity on the property. So what does that mean? How far down does that dotted line need to move to introduce additional uses beyond what the community expresses initial comfort with to introduce some viability? That's what we'll be considering in the next step. Does it need to move down even further? And that's what we'll be exploring. The tool to help us explore that and then hopefully help to share that out with some discussion and kind of a workshop polling setting with the community at the next workshop that Rich was describing on the calendar would be through scenarios and a scenario analysis, thinking about potential outcomes, the pros and cons associated with each one, and thinking through that at a planning level, what those circumstances are. And we have a bulleted point list there of the potential scenarios, which would probably be under consideration. We may add a few as we get into it in detail over the next month or so. But the current circumstances on the property, sort of what's happening. Of course, there's a deed restriction, there's the zoning, which is currently in place. Those are circumstances which are real. The existing zoning, what's possible today. Honestly, the existing zoning aligns pretty well with the community preferences today that are expressed. So the zoning that's on the property is a decent reflection of where the community's at. They're thinking about potential zoning, introducing some other options which maybe the community expressed support for that aren't present in the zoning today. That could be a scenario. Thinking about really pushing what's allowed in the zoning to increase feasibility if the focus really is on the remediation of the contamination on the property and what that might mean. Thinking about other options sort of outside of the town's zoning. For example, a 40B comprehensive permit, I think, is a scenario that should be considered. It's within the options that are available. We've talked through the potential for a 40R district, which the town would be more in control of, but that would have pros and cons associated with it, so we should think about that as a potential scenario and outcome. And then I think it's also worthwhile to think about some of the maybe preferred community outcomes that are potentially unlikely, like the site developing as open space and single-family residential. So I think that can be a scenario, and we can talk about why that's unlikely to occur and the pros and cons of that sort of as an outcome.
Josh?
Josh, it may be a big help down the road, it probably is far down the road, right? When the developer has an idea or a handle on how much it's gonna cost to clean this up, which is what everybody wants, he could back into the type of projects and the type of money that has to be grossed to be able to pay off the land cost and make a fair profit. So almost like show you exactly what this really has to be, or potential components. And a lot of the things listed probably are not going to be potential components, although an open space, a community area could be a side event of some of these other items, but it certainly wouldn't be the main focus of it. But I think when they bring forward to us and present us with, do you want the land cleaned up? This is what it's going to cost. This is what we have to build out to get our money back and make a profit. Then it sort of all comes into reality of, what do you want to do?
Yeah, Josh, if you remember back to the B1 stuff, remember we made that matrix of where the sweet spot was for, where's the profit going to come from? And that was just a really good visualization of there really aren't that many avenues to profitability here for the developer. Not that we're beholden to the developer completely, but at the same time, we want to make sure we're on, we're being fair in our assessments.
And now you throw into the fact that with the housing plan, if it's similar to what it was years ago when it was developed, I think Rich knows, we have no rental availability in the town of Norfolk. So just based on the whole master plan, which probably will be the current one also, the need for rental units is tremendous in the town. We have none. So it all fits into one outcome problem.
Yeah, I think the matrix is a great idea because there's a very strong message that the community wants this cleaned up, but some of the desired outcomes don't support that cleanup. They don't support, they're just not feasible financially. And then some of them actually, some of those outcomes don't actually support a full cleanup. I mean, if we were to do a clean energy, it doesn't have to be as clean as it does for occupancy.
Most of those don't support a
Right.
full cleanup.
Yeah, so if a full cleanup is what we're looking for, then yeah, we're gonna have, some compromises will have to be made.
And on the other side of the equation, they have the opportunity for a comprehensive permit,
Right.
and then we lose control.
Yep.
Yeah, that's all very helpful, and I think where my thinking is as well. I think, Mr. Welton, as you described, that the developer ultimately has the real numbers that will work out for the site. Of course, they're the ones that have the property and are in control of it. And thinking about the development program, I think in this process, we can provide that sort of third-party perspective with some transparent numbers, run some of our own numbers, and use some of those ballpark figures just to, as you're describing, to do some of that matrix approach where we can think about what scale the development program might support that outcome. If we just say, it's $20 million or whatever it is, and then use the next workshop to share some of those outcomes with the community to help paint a fuller picture of what's possible.
Josh, if you have a $20 million land cost and you're working on a profit margin of building output of 10%, that's an awful lot of millions to get 10% to pay the 20 million. It's a big number. So
the other thing I haven't said that yet is that there's also portions of property that are wet, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So I think things like open space could be thought of in a little bit different way, because you will have open space that's preserved on the property, of course. Those wetland areas aren't going anywhere.
Right.
And some of those could be made a community amenity in some way. There could be trails or other aspects, the Metacomet greenways coming straight through there. So I think there are parts of the community's preferences which can be introduced into the development program, and we'll try to show some of those aspects of it as well.
exactly.
That's exactly right.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we, just to
Yep.
focus on the schedule a little bit, We've, based upon community feedback that we heard at the workshop and sort of the discussion with the PIP group and Rich's office and the developer, have been sort of basically kind of in a paused mode for a few months. We're back starting up now with the things that we've talked about, the scenarios, and trying to build those out a little bit. We would be headed towards either December or January. We haven't talked about this, Rich. I feel like where we are at on November 7th would probably lean toward a January meeting at this point, just
thinking
because
so.
I don't want people to feel like we're coming back rushed after
Yeah.
having to pause. That's not the intention here. We don't want anyone to feel like they're not notified of the meeting or off guard or something.
I would concur too.
Yeah, I think so.
We also talked about having a meeting to do a similar update with the PIP group specifically, with Rich and myself, and just kind of have a discussion with them about these results as well.
Great idea.
Yeah, I'm be honest, I'm shocked by some of these results. Really shocked.
I'm actually not.
Not? I'm shocked by that. I'm shocked that the industrial is higher than the large scale multifamily. I thought the industrial was going to be the worst. But
Yeah, it's interesting to include it as a litmus test to see.
I was really shocked.
I'm right there with you. Yeah. I mean, my notes pretty much consist of
No Amazon is all I hear. Is no Amazon, no Amazon.
density is 54% disliked, up to 88% disliked, and warehouse topped out at 84%.
Right.
That's interesting. So good to know. Good to know where we're at.
And just I guess to project for the audience at home and for the board, from that workshop forward, I think for us is a little bit more mysterious at this point, just because we had scoped a certain process and had a timeline with the EA grant that's paying for our time, and that grant would be technically due, our work would be completed by June of 2023, the end of June of 2023. I think where we are and how the process is moving, we don't want to get in front of it too much or do something that would be unproductive in terms of timing or putting things out there that we don't know we don't have enough to say. So what you see on the screen is what was sort of projected in our scope, but I would say that we're open to being flexible, however that can work out. I think the town can have a discussion with the folks at EEA and see if there's flexibility in how the funding's spent. I think in past circumstances like this, they're receptive to that, where it's like this is all about helping to unlock a critical property in a development process. So we're trying to be a good partner in that process. Yeah,
On
go
that
ahead.
same train of thought, the money has been, so we have the money, actually.
Okay.
So one of the things they made a decision earlier on this year was, for whatever reasons up there, they wanted to clear the book, so to speak, so they have provided, so we have the money sitting in an account to be able to utilize it. So in this case, it'd be a matter of just speaking to EOEA in terms of, keeping the schedule matched up with where we are as a community. And the reason why we want to do that too is because in the future, as the town moves forward, there might be other grant opportunities that we want to pursue, and so we want to make sure we make that connection with them, because there is another grant that we have where they have that clock ticking, and you couldn't get into the next grant because you didn't finish up on the other one. So, but I think it'll make sense to have a conversation with Kurt at the UEA pretty soon, actually, just to give him an update where we're at.
All right.
So that is the update for the board.
Thanks, Josh.
Great,
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Really appreciate that.
So having projected to, I think, January, we're thinking about, seems to be the consensus.
Yeah.
Nothing can be really determined until the developer gets his costs together based on the cleanup, and the cleanup's gonna go on for years, probably. I don't think there's any big rush,
No.
but,
Well, that would give them time too.
yeah.
That was very informative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I would as I started earlier, I think we're looking at January, and then secondly, I would say that hybrid from here.
Yeah, I think so. I think that makes the most sense. And then it'll definitely be winter. It may stop.
Definitely be winter at that point, right, right. So, and then also kind of, now we'll try to work towards, there's a lot of stuff going on in town in January, as you all know. Special town meeting, by which we actually thought about as an opportunity to kind of create awareness for this in January. So we already did a little
Okay.
shopping this concept out for January, that it could be a way to, people be in the room for town meeting, say, hey, we got this meeting coming up, so, I know the election is January
January
8th,
Which day? 28th?
28th. You know, maybe it's January, right into early February, something like that, right after, so, we'll figure it out, but anyway, it gives us a good, good guidelines to work with, so.
Okay. Is there any comments from our Zoom audience? I don't see any hands up. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Josh. Very informative.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. We look forward to seeing you again soon.
Sounds great.
Thanks, Josh.
All right, so give Josh a minute to pack up there. We do have well, we're a little behind. We have our 15 Rockwood Road, the informal building project discussion. Rich, do you want to give us a quick overview?
Sure. So, the property owner will be joining us via Zoom.
Okay.
Originally had hoped to be here in person, but there was a death, if I remember correctly. Kind of two people that had some deaths recently. So he's joining us remotely via Zoom. So 15 Rockwood Road is, for some that have been around a long time, Mr. Gross's building on the other side of the railroad tracks, the station on Rockwood Road, which is a colonial style building. It's kind of very long.
Thanks, Josh.
So he's purchased the property and is looking to just kind of get some general feedback from the planning board. There is a conceptual plan that is up behind you. And I think they're viewing that at home too, or?
Yes, they are.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, so really, he's here to introduce himself, tell him what he's about, different things he's done in terms of development, get a feel for that, and just kind of get some feedback from you on this concept plan.
Okay.
So I'll turn it over.
Yeah, thanks, Rich. Good evening. Can everybody see me here?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. My name's Stephen Fry, Charles River Equity Partners. Again, I apologize. I was planning on being there, but had to be at a funeral in the Cape most of the day today. So I bought the property this summer, and my intentions are to redevelop the site at some point. But I've had some discussions with Richard. I actually had a couple earlier in this year. We had a couple Zoom discussions with, I think, the chairman and the vice chairman. Is that correct, Rich?
Was that with Walter?
It was quite a while ago.
That was
Yeah, that was the previous board.
the previous board, yeah.
Okay.
So I think that was with Walter and myself.
Yes.
Yes.
It was.
Okay. So just trying to understand some of the nuances of the bylaws in that, I think it's the B1 zone, is that right? And the conceptual plan that you put up there just briefly is really an early conceptual plan. It really was actually, I had my engineers put that together for me just to help me determine if I wanted to move forward with the purchase. I had it under agreement and was doing due diligence. Some of the partners that I bought the property from are involved in the Story Heights daycare business, which I think you guys are familiar with.
Yeah.
So the idea was to have them as my commercial tenant on the first floor, given the fact that we have to do a mixed-use development there, and then do apartments on the second and third floors of the development. So some of my questions were based on some of the discussions we had early on, Rich, with the previous Zoom meetings that we had. Are any bylaw changes in discussion or moving forward with that area that I should be aware of, or is it still the same?
No,
No.
not at this point.
Okay. And then any updates on town sewer?
I wouldn't hold the project on for it.
There is an update, but
There is an
it's-
update.
It's going to be a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to hang around, I could,
Well, I could.
we could do two at once if you want.
We could get the update now.
Sure, why not? So the Woburn and Kern had done some hydrogeology
testing.
hydrogeology testing, I know, right?
Yeah.
On the conservation property behind the Freeman Kennedy School, because if you remember, behind the school, the Park and Recreation has their playing fields, and the Park and Recreation approached the Conservation Commission about extending into the woodland area, a playing field. So the thought came in, if there was the opportunity to have a playing field there in terms of a turf field, then maybe we can work together and create a groundwater discharge, basically, a leach field, septic system under the ground, and then put a field back on top of it. So the report that's come back, the preliminary report, is that it's not that great of a location in terms of overall flow. So they're looking at a number around 40,000 gallons per day.
I basically think what this fellow wants to know where he bought the property and has some sketches, you're at least 5 years away because there's no funding for it and there's no location for it. So
Okay.
basically, I wouldn't have anything to do with tying up your project waiting for sewer.
Yeah.
He's faster than me, but that's basically.
We as a town, we're still working forward to try and get that done. But John's right; it's probably at least 5 years
The
out.
good thing is you have a gas line, natural gas that runs down the street that was put in years ago to connect to the new school. So
Yep.
you've got the opportunity to have natural gas at that site.
And that building
Yep,
has
that's
its own
definitely
septic
good.
right now, anyway. That building has its own individual septic right now, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so this would be a brand
Yeah.
new system there, so.
Yeah, and that's the sort of what I was getting at. If it was 18 months, 2 years down the road, I might consider holding off. I do have tenants in the building now, so the property does carry itself. So if there was the prospect of sewer going in a 2 years time frame, I might hold off, but it doesn't sound like that's going to be the case. So yeah, I was just, again, this is a very sort of open preliminary discussion. My intentions are definitely to redevelop the site. I will not be waiting 5 years. So I will probably be moving forward. Obviously, if I could have avoided putting in septic, that would be great. But that's obviously not going to happen.
Now, the one, I will add, which you might not be aware of, the one thing that has changed in terms of not necessarily with the town of Norfolk, in terms of the zoning bylaw, is that the housing choice, the legislation that was enacted, the housing choice, which is for, MBTA communities to provide housing opportunities and multifamily, but it's different scale, so forth. In August, they published their guidance towards what communities need to do in order to comply with the bylaw. And what I can tell you, at least in terms of now, whether the town does anything or not, I don't know, I cannot predict. But mixed use does not qualify in terms of allowing residential development. It has to be, you certainly can have mixed use,
Is this
but-
with the new transit law?
Yeah.
This is what we talked about, and they thought it was okay, but
And
it's
it's
not.
not.
I thought so. I
Yep.
thought so.
so.
Interesting, huh?
So in terms of all the work that we did within the B1, and as it terms to residential, you certainly can have residential as part of mixed-use building, but in terms of complying with the housing choice, we have to at least provide an opportunity for
Well,
standalone
Gary, you're
residential.
gonna get your committee back together. I think
So-
another 2-year.
Does, Rich, does that mean that I have the opportunity to do just residential there and not?
No, you don't.
No.
No.
Well,
Okay.
you could if the town made the change, if they tried to comply with the
right.
bylaw, but right now it's not there. I'm just, in terms of where we're at.
That's a longer battle.
Yeah, that's even longer than sewer. It probably won't happen, but.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, I just want to let you know, I mean, transparency, that's, but they're all right. It's, that's a much bigger hill to climb.
Yeah, okay, understood. Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, if I did not have the relationship with Story Heights, I probably would not have bought that property, given what I feel is a restrictive sort of bylaw based on the mixed use calculation that is required there. But I do have that relationship, so I decided to move forward with them, and so hopefully we'll get moving on that shortly.
So your plan is to do the daycare, the Story Heights on the first floor, and then apartments or condos up above?
Yes.
Okay.
You mean the walkout is gonna be the first floor? Entrance
Yes.
in the back? So you'll have residential on the street front?
Well, if you want to pull that back up, Rich, I don't know if you can.
You've got a full
Is
walkout in
everybody?
that building.
We have it on our side.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so parking would be obviously up closer to the tracks. I try to push the building back a little further.
Right.
And then obviously they need outdoor playground space. Right now, this shows a retention pond as opposed to underground filtration systems, Coltex. That may change. A lot of what drives that, as you guys probably are well aware, is the parking. And I know there is some leniencies with parking and surrounding spots and stuff like that that we can use. But just to satisfy the need for the daycare as well as the future residents of the development, I've got to take a hard look at the total parking there.
Yeah,
Where are we gonna put the septic?
that's a tough one.
It's right, you see the little box underneath
It's under the parking.
underneath the parking?
Under the parking.
Are you gonna keep it there?
That's where it's
Yeah, yeah.
That's
I
the
would-
plan.
Where is
Yeah.
it again?
It's
that
right.
dotted line right by the 20.
Okay, you're gonna keep the septic there.
Well, I don't have much place, I don't have a ton of space to put it, so I've got to put it under the parking.
So I'm sure you've thought about this, but if you haven't, I'm gonna mention it. I'm a little concerned about having a daycare so close to train tracks, and so I'm sure, and that's just a concern that I have as a concerned parent, that that's something Story Point's got to figure out, or whoever takes over that property will have to figure out, is just keeping the children safe.
Correct, yeah.
The other comment, or two other comments. One is I've had buildings where I've rented space similar to this. We weren't below, but we were next to a daycare, and it was very loud during the day. And this was an office building. It was in a strip mall. It was an office building next to a daycare, very loud. So the concern that I would have if I was a resident there would be, right now, a lot of people do work from home or work from home part-time. And if you were working from home and you had a daycare below you, it could be quite noisy and distractive. if you were a hybrid remote worker type person.
And there's a whole new residential neighborhood right next to it that goes around the whole
Right.
property.
I'm not even that far. I'm still stuck on the parking, the ingress, the egress.
Well, that's my
The fact that
next
the
thing was.
train's right there.
Yeah.
The times people are dropping off their kids are going to be the same times that people are going to be taking the train.
That was my next
Or
thing.
rushing to the
I still
train.
like
Right.
the idea of a pub.
Or trying to drop off their kids and then rush to the train.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So, yeah, following up on what Chris is saying, that was my third thing was the ingress, egress, because the tracks are there. And, it's just a matter of when do the parents do drop off? I don't see like a drop off loop. Looks like the parents pull, park, drop off. And so how busy is it during the morning and evening drop off and pickup? Does that and how does that coincide
All you
with the
need
train
is-
schedule?
One train to go by, and then it's backed up for miles.
Right.
And
That's why Chad-
the school already has
It's got a little
issues.
better. It's not quite as long as it used to be, but it is still, it's inconvenient because it stops for so long, especially
Right.
if it's an incoming train
Right.
or an inbound
Yes.
train, it stops for almost like 3 minutes.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
I mean, they have enough parking and drop-off issues as it is at the location they're in. I drive by it every morning. There's a stack of cars just trying to get into that loop.
What time is that?
Before 9 a.m., that's when I drop off my kids.
Yeah.
We're not poo-pooing your plan.
Yeah.
No.
I'm just, I just want to point out some things that I've experienced over the years that I just want you to have a successful project, I guess is what I'm saying. And-
Yeah, no, I understand. And, you're correct. Story Heights, first of all, they run a great operation and they will have to think through some of those things for sure. We would obviously have, safety and privacy fencing. And then, there's definitely some parking and some other things that need to get worked through. And I'm well aware of the train, obviously, and the fact that does get backed up there. They do have sort of staggered pickup and drop off, from what I understand. They have like an early and a late, or an early, a regular, and a late, something like that. So they're all valid concerns. Many of them I've had myself. Like I said, I would prefer not to have commercial at all on that site, but it is what it is. So yeah, I've got to look at a number of things there to accommodate some of those issues.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yeah, well,
Good luck. I'd like to see something there for sure, and better use of the property.
I know. I love that
You
property.
own it
Absolutely.
already?
yeah, I think so.
I'm sorry?
You own it already, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm doing it. I seem to gravitate towards train tracks. I'm also doing a project in Foxborough at 29 Wall Street, right off of the one street removed from the Common. You're welcome to take a drive by there. We're actually, I'd say we're probably on like the 5-yard line, if I can use a football analogy, of almost being completed there. So we'll be doing lease up and hopefully have bodies in there in January.
Awesome.
Is
Great.
that residential or mixed?
Yeah, it's actually also mixed use, but it was a much bigger site. It was like a 2.7 acre site. So we've got 50 apartments and 4,600 square feet of commercial space. But the commercial space, we had enough room to build a separate building for the commercial, which is up on the streetscape, and then a separate building for the apartments, which is behind it.
Okay, great.
All right.
Yeah, well, thank you for your time. This is helpful, and next time I'll come back with some other options, and we'll go from there.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So crazy. We talked about that not too long ago with the fixing the parking,
Yeah.
and
I'm really concerned about the ingress egress with
That's
the
the
train
worst
tracks and the drop off morning and evening is tough.
See-
It'd be tough.
That whole first floor is going to be entered from the backyard.
Yeah,
So
right.
the daycare actually should have the entrance in the backyard. That should be their main entrance.
Right.
And their parking and everything else would be all contained back there.
So what's the main issue with the remainder of the property? Is it just, is it grade? Is it?
The grades are tough. But
the
they're
back
not
is all
bad. They
flat for the
have
most
to dig
part.
up by the tracks. I'm not sure if there's any rules regarding projects close to tracks.
Because it's almost like they could do a big loop around the property.
Right. You gotta have space to queue up the cars
Yeah.
somewhere, or do a drop off. I mean, so I drive by their current location. Do they have a drop off loop there now?
They do, yeah.
Where?
A nice big
Oh,
U.
There's a
at
U.
the Story Heights?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought you meant at 15 Rockwood.
No.
It was a
not
lot worse when they weren't the owner. The previous operators of that location didn't have that staggered drop-off time as well, and sometimes you'd have cars queued into Union Street, and that was
geez.
problematic.
Yeah.
On this side too, the pitch is pretty high
Yeah.
from the back to the front. So
Yeah.
they'd be, in the winter, they'd be.
But
That's right.
they've done some
That's true,
decent.
from the back to the front.
Yeah.
It's pretty big back there. It's
It
like
is, but
Narnia.
from what it sounds like, it's not very usable.
It's, I mean, depending on.
A lot of fill, a lot of retaining walls, a lot of money.
In the back?
No?
No, that's all
No,
flat.
not in the back.
It
It's
is already
part.
retaining wall there because that new
Okay.
development that went, they had to
That's right.
create it, so it goes
Yeah.
all the way around with fencing and the retaining wall. So it's only the side where the train is,
Right.
and it's flat back there. Aside from that, as John mentioned, there is a grade to go down to the back.
Gotcha.
Well, looks forward to see what he comes up
Yeah, I
with.
hope he does
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. I have so many other ideas for him if that one doesn't work out.
I mean, the interesting about that site, which kind of is challenging in terms of the bylaw, you almost could have, residential on the first floor,
Underground. You could almost have
Underground.
residential in the
Right.
basement.
commercial, I mean, the daycare and then residential above it,
Right.
But our
I'm-
bylaw doesn't allow that because
No.
it's commercial on the first.
Right.
So it doesn't,
But I'm just really concerned about with so many people working remote now. It's gonna be noisy.
yeah, no, it's definitely.
Kids are kids. They're loud.
You can build the noise away, though.
You can, if you plan for it, you can.
Well, I think you have to. You're designing the
Yeah.
building with that in mind,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So-
If you plan for it, you can probably
Yeah.
mitigate it.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you can eliminate it.
No,
but
no, no,
You
no,
can.
no.
I don't mind the drum banging downstairs.
Oh, yeah, you get it.
Hey, did you flip
Drum
that
bang?
switch?
Yeah, when they do
All
music
right.
class.
No, not
His
yet.
office
Sorry,
is right
what?
in the rec space.
So next is master plan.
Oh, what's going on?
Rich, master plan. Should we keep?
Yeah, so,
let's
yeah, keep rolling.
let's get
So
it
in
done.
terms of, I did
Can
do
we
the.
open these?
Well, you can open
need, like,
these.
a drum
I was gonna give you the tally first. before you
Okay,
open.
give us the tally first. Yes.
So your numeric totals from getting the numbers for each of the planning board members, so the highest score was to MAPC at 237,
Okay.
and then Beta Group was 176.
Okay. 237, 176.
All right?
Was there anything in particular that put Beta so far behind versus MAPC?
I have to go back and look at all your different matrices, but
Worse. I asked the tough one.
Actually, they don't do it for a living. It's figure stuff.
That was actually mine
I
too.
actually worked with that Judy Barrett years ago on a project here in this town, in this room. Before your time, I forget what was on, but she wasn't the easiest one I'm interested in the price.
Yeah,
So, Beta's
the difference.
total fee was 89,560.
What do we have, 150, Rich?
What was it?
90.
80,
Oh, we get
about
90.
90,000.
Yeah.
Just under 90,000.
Well, they told me of 90.
It's all publicly available information. It's kind of hard
And
to.
it
Yeah.
coincidentally comes in a couple thousand less.
140.
And MAPC is 140.
That's a huge difference.
Well,
It's a big difference.
whoa.
Is it,
1,000 difference.
they break it down by phase?
That's phase one and phase two. So phase one, if you open it up. Phase one was
65.
This
Phase 2 was
26.
75.
Okay.
Wow, phase 2 here is 12.
Well, they also had a shorter timeline. They wanted in and out in a year.
Right. And this is about 18 months.
Right.
I think that's more. more realistic in terms of.
You don't have the money for MAPC, right?
We have the money for both, yeah, because we're only doing phase one. We have to go back to town meeting to get phase two money.
But we have.
If they do phase one, you can't switch in midstream to get a different company for phase two, correct?
No. So MAPC's phase one was 65,
Yep.
We have 50?
90.
90.
90.
Okay.
So we actually have
Yeah.
some money to play with in terms of, we broke the RFP down, but we didn't say the budget wasn't tied to phase one, phase two.
True. It wasn't on.
You know, it was 50,000 from the first request from the town, and 40 from, that we got from DOR, so.
Now what's everybody's thoughts?
I'm still there.
My thoughts haven't changed.
Yeah,
What if we hear money? Would they change them?
No.
So actually, no, it wouldn't, and I've got specific reasons for that, but a lot of it is just current working history under the same context for these sort of things, right? I think, you know,
Of course, I gave you a question you really couldn't answer anyway, because, you know.
I mean, no, I'm not funding this for the town anymore. So, I got my own battles
Their
to fight.
price is
Okay.
2/3 higher.
Yeah,
That's a lot.
well, I think, to me, that kind of says, would concern me that the other one's so low.
Right.
Correct. Well, why is phase two so low on betas? Yeah.
Phase 2 is really when the work happens. Like phase 1's discovery, understanding what's going on, and like figuring out what needs to be done.
But in a
phase
town
2
like
is
this,
like,
that is key. Like, that is
but
a lot
that
of
65.
work.
That sounds to me like an appropriate amount of money.
Yeah,
for
yeah,
phase
yeah,
one.
okay, yeah.
Whatever. What was their phase 1?
40,
Oh,
what was their phase one?
You said 89.
No, the whole,
The whole thing was 89.
Phase one, right?
No, their total.
Total, 89.
89,
Whole thing?
yeah. No, wait, hold on.
no, I think
Phase
that's the
1 is
total.
just 89.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Phase 2 is 49.
oh.
Yeah, so they're pretty
changes
much
things a little
That
bit.
changed. So betas is, okay, with betas is 89 and 49, right?
So they're the
So-
same
140.
So 138,
versus 140.
and MAPC is 140.
Yeah.
Oh, so
Oh, okay. But betas was 65 for phase one, and was it,
75 for two.
and
right?
75 for two?
It was, all right, somebody, maybe I'm reading this wrong. Phase 1 for beta was 89,560.
Yeah, that's
No,
what I got.
MAPC is 65.
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
okay,
And
sorry.
Betas is, phase one is 89, phase two is 49, total
Yep.
138, okay? MAPC, phase one is 65, phase two is 75,
Correct.
total is 140.
Yep.
Okay, so just so that we're clear and it's in public record and,
That we're
yeah,
not-
okay,
Okay.
all right.
Cleared that up.
We cleared that up. So they are $2,000 apart, not a major discrepancy.
Nope.
So, yes, I personally still feel,
Well, is this a time and materials kind of a quote here? Because they've dulled out hours for each of their employees. So if we go over the 8 hours for project management on routine coordination and communication with town planning staff, are we subject to additional costs at whatever rate?
They did, MAPC did the same.
Okay.
Right, so it's total by team fee for services. Oh, no, okay,
So that sounds like a not to exceed, but then they also provided hourly rates.
They did, yeah. The hourly rates for staff to be assigned to the Norfolk master plan below. Note that these hourly rates are current as of, okay. Yeah, may change over the course of planning process, which will span multiple fiscal years. Got it, okay.
So then this is a time and materials for both. Okay.
Not to exceed?
It doesn't seem like a not to exceed on either one.
what was in the RFP? Was it a not to exceed contract or?
You can see.
I don't remember, that's why I'm asking. So while Rich is looking that up, does Is everybody comfortable with their?
Yeah, so
Yes.
far.
Okay,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
making
yeah.
sure.
As long as it's not a potential for increased cost. We don't get funded like that. We
Right.
can't, we get an extra,
Right.
What were the, can I see the hourly rates?
Yeah.
can't get an extra bill at the end of the project when you don't have the funds.
So, let's see, project planner. Everybody's a specialist nowadays. There's no one-to-one on this.
Probably not.
Yeah.
I mean, we're really focused on the outcomes though, right? So
Right.
as long as they can pull off the outcomes that we're requiring, then staffing isn't so
Right.
much of a concern.
I don't, no, I'm not sure we specified time material versus lump.
Okay.
Yeah, we can't,
I think we typically do not to exceed.
yeah, we can't have an open-ended budget. We don't have the funding. If you get
No.
the funding for the
We-
contract and it ends up being 20, 30,000 more, you can't go back and look for extra money.
Well, I don't know. This is the detailed breakdown of professional service fees is projected by task and subtask. So if those tasks and subtasks change, then that means we're subject to the additional fees that are outlined over here based on the hourly rates of the individual.
Which is pretty common. I mean, anytime there's scope creep, you know,
Right.
in your requirements. So as long
Yeah,
as
there
we
is,
don't change
but we
them.
were dealing with finite funding.
Well, right, so we can't change our
We can't change
requirements.
it. We'd have to ask, yeah,
The town to vote
Right.
on more money.
Right.
which,
But the tasks are, so what you're saying is that this is quoted as a task-based, project-based essentially. So we're not gonna go over that, or if we do have to, we would have to go
The
off that
additional
hourly
funding.
rate.
Right.
Okay, I get it.
And then the only difference that I see is that we don't have hourly assumptions based by individual or role or effort for MAPC, but we do for Beta. So this is much more transparent than what this is.
they probably have the support if we ask for it, I'm
Yeah.
sure they have it.
Do we
Sure they
need to
use-
see that before we make a decision?
I-
Or are we comfortable not?
I think we should take the contract and read it before we do a vote. No.
But we haven't got to a contract yet, so.
No, I mean, the proposal.
Yeah. Doesn't, we didn't specify.
4, want to see it?
How much sharpening
Beta.
of the pencil are we allowed to do with negotiations?
You
And what's that?
You always can do that.
I know, but, you know, I haven't done an RFP process here for the town, so what does that end up looking like with regards to contract negotiation? Is that something that we're involved in as well, or is it just something that's done between you and town council?
It's usually done with the town council and town administrator too.
Town administrator?
And the finance director is the chief procurement officer, is where we get to the contract level. In terms of contracts that the more recent projects, we did, not to exceed amount. But then we've also done time materials. This is kind of a little unique because it's more of a task-based. So, kind of, I guess I'd be a little hesitant. Well, so I know they provide all their hourly rates, but, when you have expectation to have work performed by certain people and then somebody else gets put in there just to create a better hourly rate, you don't get the same product out of it.
Right.
That's the concern. I could get you can make it subject to if you want to vote it, and then we can get further clarification if you want.
Okay. I'm fine with that route. My main concern is around, we tend to get into the weeds with certain things, and by doing so, we are going to exceed this budget allocation of hours with individuals, and we don't know how tight or loose they play it.
Well, I can only tell you in terms of like the project that we're working on now, and even in the B1, we closely went back and forth in terms of the hours that we had based on the budget, and made sure we drew things up so we didn't go over, and if we didn't go over, so. if we had to make adjustments, we did, but
And so MAPC's phase one cost was less than what Beta's was, which gives us additional money should we need it.
correct.
Yep.
And I guess I was, in terms of thinking from the bigger picture, the master plan, I would hope that we spend a little bit more time on like, there was a budget for phase two to dig in further on, because really, if you kind of take from the broader concept planning, then bring it down.
Right.
Closer, that we don't have that time to, to vet some of these things out further on phase two. We just talked about a couple of things tonight that.
So the detailed breakdown of professional service fees is projected by team member as requested. So what's this projected mean?
It means they're assuming it's going to take a certain number of hours based on previous experience.
So there's no fixed price.
Not really.
How the hell would we know in one of those 50 phases what's involved? How the hell would we know?
Right. I mean, we can look at Beta's sheet and get an idea.
That's just an estimate as well.
We gotta get a price just complete for master plan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The town people, including Walter, did the last one on their own.
Yeah,
It's impressive.
it is impressive.
this is impressive. In terms of, I think if you wanted to do a vote, and then we can get you better answers to some of your questions, because I don't want to.
I'm fine with doing a vote on the condition that we will negotiate for a not-to-exceed contract at a price plus or minus X amount on what we've been quoted.
We can definitely have the contract be a not to exceed. We definitely have done that. The question always comes up, it's like 6 1 half does the other. It's like I have a number not to exceed. And then certain projects are better suited for time materials versus not to exceed when it comes to this stuff. So we can do it either way.
If we do it in this fashion, the only thing I would want is a fee schedule based on projected hours, and anything above and beyond that gets approved by the board.
Okay.
Yeah, so so the hours equate back to the task that's allocated based on the people,
Yeah.
whoever's doing the task.
So we would need them to provide us with the hours that they were projecting,
Yeah,
and then we would just have to have them track it and us confirm it. And then if they need additional money, it just comes to us, ask us for it. If we have it in the account, then we can vote to say
we
yes.
could do it, it would be pretty similar to the way we do with, so the, almost like the consultant peer reviews that you pay for, when projects for now, you would get the hourly, who worked on it, their hourly rate, and then by task in terms of how much complete.
The peer review contracts are always a fixed price. It only changes if you want additional services.
Yeah, but I'm just saying in terms of accounting, we can
Oh,
have
yeah,
it,
they
so.
always,
Well, we would
Anybody
have,
else?
What's up?
Not sure if I'm having brain issues. Anybody else noticed light
Yes,
changing?
I
Okay.
did. Yes. That was weird.
so we would be having regular meetings with the team though, right? MAPC, so
Right.
couldn't we just make that part of it, is that we, once a month or whatever our meeting sequence is, we would have, this is how many hours we use, so that we have a regular, we have some oversight.
Well, so one of the things we talked about, is possibly through the interview process, is that
The
which is up to
committee,
you in terms of work, it was actually the master plan steering committee.
it's either the board or it's appointed by the board.
No, it's the board plus,
Oh, right.
right? So you really are the steering committee, as part of the steering committee. It's not a couple of members that are to the steering committee. So it's really a master plan steering committee, which is, the planning board is the base, and then you add in people from different areas that they want to. So you're involved the whole time, the board is involved through the whole entire process.
Yeah, so I think that makes sense. So I mean, if they could just show once a month what their hours are, what's left in the bucket, then that would be helpful so that we
Yeah,
can,
I'm not for that.
you're not for that?
This is all subjective. Getting people here, this whole thing, if they can even get folks to comment, which is the task. Well, before this, years ago, and Judy Barrett, who was for Beta, her suggestion was have a pot roast dinner here and invite people, and that's how you can get them to attend. But the whole process is subjective. So how the hell do you keep time quantities on that?
Well, I just know from a experience doing quotes, it is based on a number of hours, and it's based on, you're doing that math, whether it's
Not the ones I do. No one comes on the site without a fixed price, because
in construction.
leads
Yes.
to trouble. It just this, and this here, this isn't like you're doing a fixed thing. This is all this is all talk. This is all subjective. You never go in front of the, and they should know that, because we're coming into the. You can't be getting a bill, well, this lady here spent 9 hours extra bringing people in for this meeting. I had to have a second meeting because a lot didn't show up, and then there's a bill, a charge for it.
No,
That's
you're not
not
gonna get that.
really how it would work. I mean, it wouldn't just be the, MAPC is having meetings upon meetings upon meetings, and we have no oversight. It would be, they have a set structure of the way that they do things, and it wouldn't be having 90 meetings with 9
No, but the
individuals.
set structure should have a set price.
It doesn't usually.
No, well.
Maybe
that's
in
how I do it,
government,
and
maybe in government,
if
and in
it's-
construction, yes, that's 100%
I
how it works.
I wouldn't sign anything with an open
Not usually
contract
with
where you have no
consulting.
funding. Never.
Yeah.
Wouldn't do it.
With consulting, it doesn't.
I'm in
Not like
consulting,
that,
and that's just not
Not
how
how
it
it works.
works.
I always buy a bucket of hours, and once
Yes,
I'm out of that
that's
bucket
exactly-
of hours, I'm going back to the well looking for more hours to put in that bucket.
No, that's up
Well,
to you.
this case, for this project, there was a set bucket, so it's
It's
a
a defined output.
defined
It's a
outcome.
defined
so-
end product. This isn't talking back and forth.
No,
This is a defined product that we're paying for.
correct.
Well, you said for the B1, we didn't go over the budget, right? So.
No, we
Sounds
didn't.
like that shouldn't be a problem with them.
I don't think it would be. And we didn't even, and actually, likewise, in terms, I know MAPC came out on top, but we didn't go over the budget with Beta either on the Metacomet Greenway feasibility study. Because both of them know the task at hand and what, if things come up in process that are out of scope, that's one thing, but,
Well, yeah, that's different.
but we haven't gone over on,
If it's that much of a concern, we can just have milestones, like, hey, are we at 50%, or just let us
Yeah.
know when we're at 50%, let us know when we're at 75%, and then we can kind of gauge what the perceived.
Well,
work
he's
left is
got,
versus.
yeah, I mean, on MAPC, I think he's got these milestones.
Perfect.
Task 1, 2, 3, 4,
And prices associated.
and prices associated. So, yeah, he can let us know.
Yeah.
I think he can, yeah.
when it comes to this type of work with public entities on these projects, consultants usually end up eating it, so.
Which is
Okay.
usually why consultants don't do that.
No, I mean,
No, but I understand, that makes sense.
we just got done doing, so Weston Sampson did the assessment for Buckley Man property. We had a budget, and they ended up having to eat $3,000 of it, because it required more work out of them,
Yeah.
and we weren't gonna give them more money.
But they wanted to finish it, they were driven, right? They did it.
And this stuff, they know how, yeah, I mean, it's kind of the nature of it, they
Sure.
know you're not gonna go back, I mean,
So what are we doing? Let's call it.
I think we make a motion to approve the master plan by MAPC. Proceed with, I guess it's handed off, we gotta hand it off to town administrator and to negotiate the contract now.
it's not really negotiation,
Well,
set
to
the terms of it.
to set
yeah.
the terms of the contract.
Yeah. And if you want to review, I can get you the,
Yeah.
Statement of work.
Yeah.
statement. So that scope of work is going to get incorporated into the
Yep.
contract. I can actually give you, just for comparison purposes, if you want, I can give you the contract that we did for the just to see how they look in terms of the wastewater study for town center that was done, which was from a grant. Just how the contracts, so you can get a feel
Okay.
for it.
So is this gonna be a fixed price that we're
It's a
voting on?
fixed price.
Fixed
Yeah.
price.
Secondly, we're town people. We don't have the right to spend money without an okay. We
That's
can't
right.
just spend money.
No, and we've been talking about that, but
Yeah.
we do have extra money for phase one if push came to shove, right? Because
But we gotta finish phase two. In the end, we've got a bucket of money, right?
Right.
Well, we have a bucket of money for phase one right now.
We have a bucket of money for
So we
phase
don't even have
one.
money for phase two.
But we
don't have
our
enough
goal is
for
to be
phase
responsible and hold them to this, and then use extra money to carry over to phase two. Ask for less money for phase two, but again, push comes to shove. We've got 90,000.
Well, the plan was to go back to the town and ask for, I think it was another $50,000
$50,000.
at fall meeting, but we weren't ready, we're not ready to do that.
Not ready to do that, so.
That'll be in the spring.
Yeah, so if you look at the big picture with these two numbers,
It works
we're
out.
going back to town for less money than we originally had said, because we had the 40. No, actually, it's the same number.
It's the same number.
It's
So
within,
this is the full contract price, and we've only got part of the funding
well, we
for it.
only have, right.
Right.
So the contract to have you written that we only have funding for phase one.
Right.
I have to work with town council on it, in terms of town administrator, because
That's bizarre.
That was brought up at town meeting as bizarre.
That was, I know.
It was
It's
explained.
the first time the town's
It had-
ever asked us to take more money.
Why? Yeah, that was really interesting. That's right. Advisory did say, why don't you just take it now?
no, that was a town meeting.
That was
That was a town meeting. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Advisory said that at town.
No, well,
No, no, it was
first
a-
somebody brought it to the floor.
Yeah.
That's right.
And then the conversation was,
Yeah.
why didn't you just?
But then
The
Blythe,
practical reason is because when I made the pitch to town administrator at the time, they weren't gonna recommend 100,000
Right.
correct.
with all the budget items, so.
Right.
That's why, I mean, that's a little piece there's a big piece that everybody
Right.
kind of forgets. It
And-
wasn't like, hey, why don't you ask for the 100,000 in the beginning? Well, we did. They're like, no, you're not gonna get 100,000 right off the bat.
Right. And I remember Blythe's comment was, well, you're not going to spend it all in this fiscal year, so
Exactly.
ask for half now and half next year, because that's when you're going to spend it.
And it was in the
Okay.
warrant article to
Fine.
say they would be coming back to let
Yeah.
the townspeople know,
Yeah.
so.
That's fine.
Makes sense from a fiscal responsibility
Yeah.
perspective, absolutely.
So we were
That's fine.
trying to be fiscally responsible, but.
Exactly. So, all right, so we need a motion to, are we done discussion?
Yes.
All right. Need a motion to approve the response and move forward with the, move forward with the response from the MAPC totaling $140,000.
We'll just do phase one.
Just do phase
So
one.
phase one for a total of $65,000.
Yes.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right?
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Excellent.
Okay. So next item is the zoning bylaws. So is this a follow-up from last
Yeah, it's just in
week?
terms of the sign bylaw.
This is the discussion proposed zoning bylaw amendment, sign
Sign
bylaws.
bylaw.
So this is an update on the sign bylaws.
Right, so October, what, 27th, we were there? 24th, something like that, 24th.
24th.
Harry and Melissa and myself went to meet with the Norfolk Small Biz Association,
Yep,
talk about sign
yep.
changes. I think that, so we had a lot of good input from them. And what we need to do is make it hopefully clear that we're gonna try to put a package of changes, but get some small wins. There will be comprehensive changes, but it's not gonna be change everything at one fell swoop. Because it quite honestly could be overwhelming and dilute it where you don't get anything. So that was kind of the big picture discussion about it. And there's some things that I think are smaller, hopefully smaller things to help improve the sign bylaw for businesses that would be a little bit easier to implement. for the spring. You know, there's some projecting signs, blading signs that are there. Talked about them. Well, interesting enough, I know I see the, you know, there are portable signs out there. I see a certain
Sure.
business, which technically is to call them sandwich board signs. I know businesses are using, but make them actually put them in the bylaw so you could use them.
That was surprising. I didn't know that so many small businesses in the town that would help them so much. You know, just having that little A-frame sign out front talking about their specials, or, you know, sign up for your dance classes, or, you know, I expected that it was going to be more about the illuminated signs because that's typically what we hear. But there are so many quick wins that I can send you guys the deck so you can review it, but so many quick wins that, you know, we went through, and, you know, this is the bylaw that says you can't have this, which is such a common sign, you know, like the cafe signs.
Yeah, I know what you mean, yeah.
You know, like they
Yeah.
protrude, but it's kind of like sideways where it shows you
Yeah.
the name. You can't have those. It can't protrude more than 12 inches right now from the building. So you can't have those, which are great for visibility when you're walking by. There's a lot of little things like that where we were thinking those would be more of the probably likely to be approved, minor changes. And then having you can have one white, or not, I keep saying one, but it's white light that you can have on your sign, and it has to be externally lit. Some of the business owners didn't know that you could do that. So that was something that, it was just kind of a side conversation. Here's your bylaw that says you can do that. Of course, you have to talk to your landlord and talk about getting the electricity, you know, having an electrician come out to wire it and all of that. So, but yeah, there was some confusion with things that we actually do offer today that nobody knew about, or some people didn't know about. And then there's some other, we have how many, 10 slides, so I'll send them to you guys so you can review them, and we can, if you want to talk about it at the next meeting, go through any questions, show the slides on the public meeting, we certainly can. But yeah, we were thinking maybe it's just start with the ones that we know are low-hanging fruit, the ones that are not going to be a huge concern for folks, and then, you know, we don't...
And bundle those into one change.
Yeah. And then for the other ones, you know, we definitely want to keep them separate. If it's going to be internally illuminated, maybe it's, you know, we need to note the brightness and the Kelvin, you know, the warmth.
Yep.
And all of that, because white is not necessarily white. It could be orange, it could be blue, it could be somewhere in the middle. So maybe if we have a little bit of control like that from a design perspective, it would be something that would be seen as more feasible to get approved. So working through the details of that. And then, you know, it seems like nobody wants the big Vegas signs, so I don't think we're going to approach that anytime soon.
It is interesting, though. I mean, a lot of enthusiasm for the whole topic from what we got from 8, 9 members, maybe 7 members of the Small Business Association that was there. And then just some things to think about. We've been thinking of signage, right? Like, especially when we're talking about illuminated signs. Representative from NCTV said, well, we're NCTV, why can't we just put an LCD screen in our window and like display the actual TV? I'm like, I would have never thought of that. That's you know, that's kind of something to think about. A use case that I wouldn't, because we've been thinking about, you know, I want, you know, Tony Stark Industries, right? Like that sort of sign.
Right. They just want to be able to advertise to us about our own town.
Yeah.
So it
It's
does
really
make
good to get
sense.
the feedback, though.
Yeah.
From so many diverse individuals. Their needs are different, but there were certainly things, you know, like the sandwich board sign, where we were like, oh, wow, that's such an easy thing. We just have to figure out where individuals could put it on their property and figure out if we can get a standard approval.
Yeah, some sidewalks are larger than others.
Yep, so you can still get by with a wheelchair or whatever it may be.
So the interesting piece with NCTV is really kind of where this all originated, if you remember, with Bob, in terms of trying to have an LCD panel essentially for
That was
town.
more for communications, though. right?
Communications.
Right.
But on the same venue, I did include some email exchanges I had with Dunkin' Donuts, if you recall seeing them. So Dunkin' Donuts in the center of town, they would like to move towards the LCD outdoor menu board, and it's not allowed.
That's right, it's not allowed, but most fast food restaurants, that's what they do.
They have it now.
Yeah. So, and so I had a brief conversation with them in terms of the owners of it, I'm like, well, I don't know. I'm not sure that's gonna make the day. So they were not
But
too.
why wouldn't it? I mean, what's the pushback? I mean,
Well, it's
I know, but what, I mean,
what's
it's a menu board. It's outside. It's
a sign.
It's
a-
illuminated.
I know.
It's illuminated.
I know.
It's
But
internal
there,
illuminated.
is there signs backlit, is it not, right now? How
No,
is
there's
their sign
no light. They
illuminated?
have, like, light
How is
on
their
it.
sign illuminated now?
It's a front light.
It's a front light.
I've never been there when it
It's
starts.
actually on the bottom.
I'll be
No,
honest.
me either.
But like
I don't
that's a good question. Like how, you know, this is, we'll start talking about this, I'm sure, for the next year or two. But like, how, if we decide to allow this stuff by special permits, what are the things we consider? Like, can they turn it off at night when they're done for business? Right? Like,
Correct.
Where's it projecting? Right
Right.
now, it's a parking lot and a train track.
Right.
So like, is it really going to affect the neighbors? Really interesting to start workshopping this in your head and think
Yeah.
through all these different considerations. Because you know, so you started sending those emails, and then I don't do fast food a lot, but I do a lot of other Dunkin' Donuts. You know, as I'm driving around, like they all have these.
They all have
They
it.
all
You're
have
right.
signs
I didn't think about it until you mentioned it. You're right. That's the old school sign that's over there. Yeah.
It's not any bigger than, it wouldn't be any bigger than what's there today, so it's not really a size issue, it's really illumination.
And it'd be
But
better from an environmental perspective. You're using less power to power that one screen instead of multiple lights and paper that they have to print in order to
Right.
put into those cavities.
Absolutely, but I just think of the whole kind of, so anyway, we'll talk a little bit more
Yeah.
about that in
But I like the
December.
approach that you guys are taking is, I mean, you're never going to get a perfect sign bylaw. Let's think of everything and let's do it all at once. That's not feasible. And we all know these bylaws are something that evolve over time. So
That statement that you made is critical to the success of the sign code changes, is have consensus around that statement. I don't believe that there's consensus around what you just said.
We talked about that too in the meeting, where, you know, it's like, why are we stuck on this comprehensive notion of like, we got to push everything all through at once? Because it's, as we're learning, there's too many wants and needs.
Right.
And, you know, we kind of have to figure these things out step by step and
Right.
evolve the bylaw over time.
But what you've done is you've started the research and you're starting to find those common threads. So now that commonality, let's address the commonality and let's do that now. But then you've got some other things that are going to take some time.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we'll have to spend
And
that.
they should, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, for the
Yeah.
internally illuminated, nobody, I don't think anybody wants the B1 to look like Vegas,
Right.
you know?
No.
But let's,
From like a low impact, low visibility perspective.
See
and
how it
go all the
goes,
way
learn
high
from it.
impact, high visibility.
Right.
Yeah.
and it's going to evolve over time. Because if
And
we
they were
go
all
in with the
fine with
mentality, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And, sorry, all the business owners, they were all fine with that when we met with them. They're like, just the quick wins, just helping us, you know, and Jen was, you know, pleading to us and when she came to the meeting at the beginning, so,
But the ask from the advisory board was comprehensive, so I think we got to start messaging that and working on, you
Right.
know, how do we make sure everybody's comfortable with that approach?
I'm just concerned if we go forward with a comprehensive approach, we'll be spending years trying to develop this. So I'm of the opinion, let's start with these common low-hanging fruits like you mentioned, and just start, we got to start somewhere.
Call it the phased approach
yeah.
for a comprehensive bylaw around signage.
And then, yeah, and Gary and I we've talked about this too, showing people, this is what we mean, you know, this is an example, this is the lighting. Well, I'm sending this to you guys right now so that you have it to review. But seeing the difference between like 4,000 K versus, you know, it's just the yellow, orange,
Yep.
blue lights, it makes a big difference. And if you're driving down the center of our super cute town, you don't want to see like the blue light
Like
in
the
your face.
5100K
Yeah,
or the.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think when people know that we're taking all of these things into consideration, I probably feel a lot better about, you know, and show the visuals of these signs and what we expect it to look like and what the sign maximums would be. And, but the visual, I think, is, you know, if you just say like bylaw 42.f.b and here's what the text will say, like, what does that mean?
Right.
I have a light meter if you want to borrow it.
You do?
Of course you do.
You are going to be the monitor.
You're scaring me.
So that's
This is
that's kind of a
amazing.
wrap for sign
All right, so that's signs.
minutes.
So we're missing Eric. Do we want to wait?
But we can wait until next meeting and
Okay. So we will postpone that till next meeting.
Just quickly, I'll have one comment on the wastewater. So the recommendation is to do, survey the property with ground penetrating radar.
Yep.
To get a better profile of what's on the ground. And then, once that's done, revisit the topic in terms of
Now, is that in the conservation land area or in the existing field?
both. Both. So
Did we
that-
ever do hydrological testing in the actual field itself or just in the conservation area?
There are monitoring, they did do some around the perimeter of the fields.
Okay. Did
Yeah.
those fare any better?
They were a little bit better, yeah,
Yeah, those look promising.
yeah.
Okay.
But the next step will be the ground penetrating radar,
Okay.
and then come back to see what that looks like. So
Okay.
that's the size of it. Master plan, we already talked about. Southwood, you already kind of, really pretty much talked about that quite a bit.
Yep.
No other updates? Oh, well,
Well, go ahead. I have one.
the town meeting's next week.
Yes, we have a town meeting next Tuesday, right? What about E-code?
Oh, my goodness, that's a
Oh,
big
no.
skip over, yeah, all right.
I mean,
The glasses came off. This is serious.
yeah, this is
Sat back and everything.
Huh?
You sat back in your chair. You're getting what? Lay it on us.
guessing it's not good.
It's not, yeah. So, the Attorney General has requested, which we are doing, to advertise in the Sun Chronicle the public hearing notice for the E-code changes that we did in the spring.
Right.
And the reason why is because in the notice in the newspaper, it did not include the Zoom link, because both meetings that you held, the public hearings, were via Zoom. And in the statute, there is no provision for remote. The open meeting law was suspended,
Right.
which addresses Zoom, which we did. We posted it in Town Hall with the Zoom link. We sent it to all the abutting communities, and the RPAs with the Zoom link, but we didn't put it in the Sun Chronicle. So we have to do that, and then, I forget what it is, 21, there's a time period if nobody has an objection to it. You don't have to do anything in terms of the
It's
board.
just more of a waiting.
It's more of a waiting period. But with 2 points that were very frustrating from our standpoint, at least mine, and not everybody, but they got an extension to give us their thoughts on the E-code till November 3rd. And we heard like 2 weeks prior to that extension about this issue. So if somebody at the Attorney General's office was canvassing this a long time ago, we could have been aware of it and posted it in between. And so it ends up putting us in the position now where next week, I gotta talk to town council whether we have to, on town meeting floor, put in the old section of the bylaw, because that's not the way it was on the warrant. We have the handout, which we'll have for the town meeting members, but it references E-code,
Right.
which was adopted. So
we decided to do both.
we have it as a handout.
As the handout.
In the handout.
It's not on the warrant that
It's
way.
not the warrant.
We followed the language because we had, that's just the projection of where we were in the timeline.
Right.
And I'm getting off my horse, but I'm still really agitated with the Attorney General's office. I think because Mass General Law, the Wetlands Protection Act, nothing addresses the COVID. So I bet there's a heck of a lot more communities throughout this Commonwealth that had permits that they didn't put Zoom links on for public hearing notices, but yet, so anyway, whatever, we're doing what we're doing. But it was,
We gotta do what we gotta do to make it right and satisfy them and move on. Frustrating.
we're moving on, I'm a little slow, sorry. I'm really, because we could have,
But I don't blame you.
Yeah.
It's really frustrating.
it is.
Yeah. So
So
how much further does that put us?
it puts us into December. I think it's December, maybe.
And our microphone's not working anymore.
Mine
So
is.
that-
He's fixing it.
I think that puts us into December.
Okay.
So I think this could, at the end of the day, it's probably all for nothing, but whatever. We'll do that, and then, yeah, so, what a pain.
So do we have to print new warrants?
No.
No.
Motion to switch it out.
I
Jake's
don't-
pretty good at doing.
Yeah, I have to talk to Jay and tell him, I mean, I don't know if we have to do that, but this really kind of put a little wrinkle in things.
I mean, we got the handout, so if people need illustrations, it's like,
Yeah,
Right.
there's a handout, what you see on the warrant isn't,
right.
and what's gonna be read out loud. It happens to be on your handout, so there's always that.
Do you have those handouts ready for, do we need to review anything or?
You will. I don't have them for you today, but I
Okay,
will.
but
be.
you'll have them by the
Yeah,
end of the
I'll
week.
have them to review them,
Okay.
correct, yep. To print them
Okay.
up, so, yeah, so that's a good reminder. That was, other than that, I don't think we have any updates.
Okay. All right. So next Tuesday would be, so we got our town meeting on the 15th. Our next meeting's on the 5th.
Are you in town?
Next week? Yep.
I
I'm
thought you
here.
said you were out of town. No?
That meeting got canceled.
Oh, okay.
Gary's out, right? Yeah. I'll be here.
When, next week, you're out?
Next week for town meeting. My wife will be going to her first town meeting. She is ecstatic.
Oh, excellent. All right, so that's it for me.
So, at our next meeting, Betsy, can you have our, next year's dates on here?
Will do.
Okay, thank you.
So 11:15 and then 12:05
Yep.
for the next, okay.
And then sounds like January is gonna be a busy month too, if we're gonna have a meeting, a planning board meeting, plus this extra meeting, plus an election.
13. Did you say 12:05?
What's the extra meeting?
12:05. I got 12:05 on,
12:05 is on.
I got 11:15 and 12:05.
December 5th,
Yeah.
Monday?
December 5th?
Yeah,
Didn't we move it?
I think we moved it.
You already moved it?
Yeah.
Yeah, last
We did it at a
meeting.
previous meeting.
Oh, sorry, well, I guess I wasn't paying attention.
That's okay.
Missed it. I'm glad.
We're just making sure we're all on the same
I
page.
know, I was like,
All
well,
right, disregard what I said then, sorry. All right,
I got 11:15 and 12, 11:15 is town meeting,
okay.
12:05 is our next planning board.
Okay,
Yep,
excellent.
okay.
We didn't turn the thing on.
I can tell.
The hottest day in November, and we forgot to turn on the.
it's not hot in here though, is it?
Now
Johnson?
it now it
Stale.
is.
Yeah, it's getting a little warm.
Asked you if you
I
were
know, that was an
okay.
hour ago.
All right.
Definitely stale.
Anything else?
I think that's it.
Okay,
Good.
When is, what are we?
can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? Do we have a second?
Second?
All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? We are adjourned.
Thank you.